Why Amazon is making changes to FBA restock limits and seller fulfilled Prime? In this video, Nish will answer these questions. Nish is from Olsam, which acquires different Amazon brands. And in this video, he gives an overview of new restock limits and explains what changes Amazon has done to improve the delivery for Amazon Prime customers. If you would like to get in touch with the Olsam team, find the link below and mention Orange Click in this video. Olsam might buy your Amazon brand. And I wanted to mention that this video is hosted by LISETT LEES. She works with different Amazon sellers and stores. And if you find this video useful, don't forget to click like button below the video and subscribe to our channel.
Hi Nish, I'm really happy to have you here on Orange Click YouTube channel today. So before we start talking about some new limits and some new changes to the FBA Restock and also seller fulfilled Prime, then could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do and how Olsam helps Amazon sellers?
Sure. Thanks for having us on LISETT. Good to speak with you again. Really good to be back on the channel after Klik Summit. Very excited. Yeah, let me give you a quick overview of what Olsam does, and then I'll introduce myself as well. So Olsam, we are a acquirer of e-commerce businesses. We're based in the UK, and we were founded last year. We were founded by two brothers, Ollie and Sam, which is where the name Olsam comes from. Ollie has a background in investments and investment banking and private equity, while Sam has a background in Amazon. So he used to work at Amazon. He was working in Amazon Marketplace and part of the team that launched Amazon Business Marketplace. And he also ran his own Amazon business. So once he left Amazon, he also exited that business and then founded Olsam with his brother Ollie. We've grown since last year. We've just finished our Series A fundraising. We've grown to over 40 people, and we're based in the UK. We're investing in Amazon businesses all around the world. So that's a bit of background on Olsam. On myself, I head up business development at Olsam. I look after business development and marketing. I speak with a lot of sellers pretty much daily. I speak with businesses, and this is a continuation of what I used to do at Amazon. So I used to be in Amazon Marketplace, worked at Amazon at the same time as Sam, and I did a few different things. So I started in sales. Then moved into product management, and then finally program management, which is basically high-level strategy across Amazon's Fulfillment by Amazon program and Seller Fulfilled Prime. So that was across EU that I worked on both programs. I was involved in a lot of the implementation of the restock limits for FBA last year and earlier this year. And then for SFP, I was part of the team that launched SFP in the UK in 2017, and then was also part of the team that was working on the changes for SFP that came through earlier this year in the UK and US and across EU. So that's a bit of background on me. And just one more thing to add. I mean, myself and Sam both used to work at Amazon, and that's and you can see, like through the experience that we've had there, that a lot of the people that we've hired at Olsam are also from Amazon. So yeah, one thing I want to add before is about the operational expertise that Olsam has that are sort of inherent in the people that we hire. So that's why we're in a position where we can sort of speak about specific topics like the ones we're about to speak about, because we've actually worked on them before.
Okay, sounds really good, and you're definitely the right person to talk about these changes we will go through today. So basically, we have two different topics. So we will first discuss a little bit about these FBA restock limits. So, but before we go even to the changes, could you please just briefly explain what FBA stands for those sellers who are not aware? What are the options to sell products on Amazon Marketplace?
Yeah, sure. So FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. And what that means is, from a seller's point of view, it's a way for you to get your products onto Prime. And why is Prime important? Majority of, Amazon is really aiming to get more and more people using Prime. As a Prime customer, you get access to free delivery within 1 or 2 days, depends on what country you're in. And you get access to a whole host of other things like Prime Video, etc. Prime customers spend more on Amazon, 4 to 6 times more. So as a seller, you want your products on Prime because it's a higher chance that people are going to buy them because of the free next day delivery, and they're going to spend more on your products as well. And FBA is one of those ways to get into Prime, and basically means that you send a whole load of your stock into an Amazon warehouse, and when the customer orders those products, Amazon will pick, pack, and deliver those products for you, deal with the returns, deal with the customer service. So you're basically leveraging Amazon's logistical capabilities by doing FBA.
Okay, very, very good and detailed explanation. So let's go to the main point then. What are the new changes that Amazon is implementing regarding to the FBA restock limits?
So a lot of people watching this will probably be familiar with these already. So a lot of the changes have been applied over the last year. So they were applied last year when COVID started, and been there was big news earlier this year. I think it's quite topical now because even though they've eased slightly for Q4, they'll probably be constricted again early next year. So yeah, just to answer your question on what the changes were. So Amazon started applying restock limits to anyone using FBA last year when COVID started. What that means is that when you're sending items into an Amazon fulfillment center, you're sending in units of stock, and there's a limit on the number of units that you can send in. When COVID started, Amazon had it at a SKU level. So in each SKU, you had a limit on the number of units that you could send in. Earlier this year, they changed that to an account level. So what that means is on your account, or each brand that you have, if you have multiple brands, on each of those accounts, there will be a limit on the number of units that you can send in to FBA. And that differs by marketplace. So Amazon brought the account level restock limits into play earlier this year. And obviously this has had an impact on sellers because it means that there's only a limited amount they can send in. You add in the layer of complexity that we're seeing with supply chain at the moment, and it means that there's a danger that some sellers' fast-moving products will go out of stock, and then they don't have any stock coming in, and then they're just left with their slow-moving products. Yeah, so that's a basic summary of the restock limits changes. And one more thing to add: all sellers are subject to these changes. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Doesn't matter what your IPI score is. Every single seller has a restock limit on their account.
Okay, and you mentioned these apply on different marketplaces. So do you have any information? Are like some marketplaces more limited than the other ones, so that sellers could just keep that in mind?
So it's not quite that simple. So firstly, the fundamental issue, like why Amazon making these changes, it's because, well, I know you were going to ask me that question later, but I'll cover it very, very quickly now. We can go into more detail in a second. It's because Amazon, it's a capacity problem. So Amazon has a certain amount of fulfillment centers with a certain amount of space in each of those fulfillment centers. And with the increase in e-commerce spending by customers, more and more sellers are sending more items in at a rate that's much faster than the growth of the fulfillment centers that Amazon has. So that's the fundamental issue. And when it comes down to different marketplaces, first, I think it's important to look at what are the things that determine restock limits. So there's a few different things that go into it. The main ones are past sales, future sales. So Amazon will predict what the sales of your products are going to be, what your current inventory level is, and then also finally the available capacity in their fulfillment centers. So it might be that at any one time, there might be more capacity in a certain fulfillment center in the UK. So your restock limit might ease for certain products. So it's very difficult to predict which country is better. What we have noticed, certainly at Olsam, is that over the last couple of months, it's eased for us in the UK. So restock limits have eased in the UK compared to US and rest of Europe. They've eased slightly as well, but by not as much as the UK.
Okay, yeah, I indeed wanted to ask why Amazon is implementing them, but actually I wanted to know like how often usually Amazon does updates to these limits. Were this one like purely because of COVID and all the situation that happened, or were these planned before even that?
Yeah, I'll answer the last question first about why they're making them. So as far as I know, these weren't planned before COVID. So Amazon's had a real change in strategy. So it used to be, so when I started at Amazon in 2017, and FBA really started growing a lot in 2015. So the strategy at Amazon was to really grow the number of sellers using FBA and really push them to inbound or send in as many units of their stock as possible into FBA and enroll them onto Prime. So the strategy was always get as many sellers using FBA as possible, inbound as many units as possible into fulfillment centers. Sellers will see that these will sell faster, they'll inbound more sellers will use Prime, more customers will use Prime. It's this cycle that Amazon has. The strategy changed early last year at the beginning of COVID mainly because of e-commerce growth. So I think in the UK, e-commerce sales grew by 46% last year. In the US, it was just under that. I think it was 44%, which is massive, like huge growth. And not even Amazon could keep up with that growth. So they actually changed their strategy from asking sellers to inbound as many units as possible to realizing that the fulfillment centers that they have weren't large enough or had enough capacity to go through as many fast-moving products as possible. So they started to tell sellers only inbound fast-moving products. Your slow-moving products, take them out of the fulfillment centers, and they incentivize sellers by adding in more penalties on products that were kept in the fulfillment centers for too long, and just push them to inbound only their fast-moving products. So change in strategy driven by change in strategy from Amazon, but also the e-commerce growth over COVID, also the capacity constraints that Amazon have had. I think it's worth noting that Amazon are building lots of new fulfillment centers and hiring lots of staff, but the pace at which they're doing it is even for them, they can't keep up with the pace of growth of e-commerce.
Okay, very good background information to really understand why these limits are now in effect and why Amazon does what it does. So, so how does these limitations affect Amazon sellers, Amazon FBA sellers?
Yeah, so there's I'm sure a lot of people listening will be familiar with these, but there's quite a few impacts. So I can go through them one by one. I think the main one is the constraints on growth, because Amazon sellers have had to change from being able to inbound as many units as possible, launch as many new products as possible, and inbound lots and lots of units, to now facing account level limits on all their brands. So now they really have to completely reevaluate how they manage their inventory, their supply chain. What are the new products I can launch? Which new markets can I launch them in? So, so first thing is constraint on growth. What at the height of this, at the height of restock limits, which was earlier this year, a lot of brands had their limits slashed by up to 2/3. So that meant that the number of weeks of cover of units that they could send in at any one time was reduced. So when we were at Amazon, we used to recommend sellers to inbound at least sort of 6 weeks, usually up to 8, 12 weeks worth of cover, i.e. that means the number of units they're going to sell over 6 to 12 weeks in any one time. But then because Amazon were changing the restock limits, so they were changing these weekly, it meant that sellers couldn't inbound that many units in one go. And they were forced to reduce the number of units they could inbound at any one time. And there was variance from country to country as well. And it also meant that new products, they couldn't launch as easily because they were always trying to replenish their faster moving products. So that was the first one, constraints on growth. The second one, almost as important, is a supply chain complexity. So it meant that because Amazon were changing the limits every single week, sellers couldn't then predict the direction of change, when it was going to change. And so they had to start monitoring these things daily, weekly and often daily. There are also delays in getting FBA delivery slots, which this was reported earlier this year. We're in Q4 now, so this is pretty normal to have delays in getting FBA delivery slots. But yeah, another thing to be aware of. And then the last thing was margin pressure. So it's challenging for hit profits because there's increased ad spend because of all the competition. And yeah, this was a common complaint from a lot of sellers, and what we were finding as well. So I'd say those were the main the three main things the sellers were impacted by. And well, I guess we'll come on to it, but when sellers started to deal with these issues, there were other complexities as well.
Okay, so I think you briefly mentioned how these limitations affect new sellers, but can you go once over? So if somebody wanted to start selling a new product, so there is no past sales or future sales to be predicted, then how Amazon limited, or like what rule they use for limiting the inventory that new sellers can send in?
So there wasn't one, there still isn't a rule that limits any new products that you can send in, but if you think about the different attributes I said that go into determining what the restock limit is, a lot of it is based on past sales of a product. They use those past sales and past seasonality and things like that to predict what future sales are going to be. And the other two things were like inventory levels and fulfillment center capacity. But two of the main attributes that go into that are past sales and their prediction of future sales. So if it's a new product that you haven't sold before, they've got nothing to go off. So Amazon will just apply a hard-coded value for what the number of units you're going to sell is going to be. So maybe you're launching you've been working a new product for 6 months, a year. A lot of sellers spend ages, months and years designing their products, sourcing them, bring them in, and then you think it's going to be selling several thousand units. That's not necessarily going to be reflected in your account, because Amazon, if it's a brand new product that hasn't been sold on Amazon before, Amazon has no way of predicting what those sales are going to be. So then you're faced with a choice: either you launch that product in a small number of units, or if you want a huge launch with lots of units because you expect lots to sell, you then need to think about removing some of your other items because you have a limit on your on the capacity. So that's how it limits new product launch. But there isn't a hard and fast rule that Amazon have that says we're going to limit new product launch. It's just an externality of the restock limits.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. So do you have any tips to share how sellers could adapt better to these changes and survive?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways to look at this. One is how to manage the limits that came in, and a lot of sellers will have been doing this already, but I'll cover the few points. And the second one is understanding how to actually increase limits, and we've seen some success on this side. So first, on how to manage the limits, the main thing here is the change in strategy from Amazon has, whether sellers like it or not, has resulted in a change in strategy from a seller's point of view. So sellers used to be able to order units in bulk from their manufacturer, often based in China, and then deliver them straight to an Amazon fulfillment center, whether it's in the US or the UK, Europe, whatever. But because of the limits that Amazon brought in, this is no longer possible. And so a lot of the larger sellers, including us, have had to start working with 3PLs. And these are 3PL stands for third-party logistics provider. These are warehouses that house, in some ways, they're a competitor to Amazon fulfillment centers, but they house units for lots of different sellers, lots of different manufacturers. And what it means is that sellers can order in bulk from their manufacturer, so they don't have to take a hit on margin by ordering lower volumes of items. They then inbound them into their 3PL provider in each country, and then drip feed from that 3PL provider units into the Amazon fulfillment center. So one way to manage is by forming these relationships with 3PLs, because otherwise there's no easy way to order the same volumes and keep the cost of goods at the same level as you were keeping before, but then also inbound them into Amazon. That just isn't possible anymore. So that's the first thing. Second thing is when you're managing that movement from 3PLs into Amazon fulfillment centers, you need to, depending on what your restock limit is and which product you're dealing with, you need to really think about sending in small numbers of units, but often. So often sellers will have set up palletized shipments a couple of times a week, once a week, whatever it is. It depends on how often you inbound into Amazon. But that has in recent times changed to maybe a few boxes of units, maybe a few times a week, compared to palletized units once or twice a week. And then on the weeks of cover side, the weeks of cover has reduced. So we used to recommend Amazon 6 to 8 or up to 12 weeks. Now that's reduced to maybe 4 weeks, up to 6 weeks, where possible. So those are the key things on how to manage it. If you're really pushed on the restock limit side, and then you've got lots of units that just aren't selling, you can always remove some of the units. That will be reflected immediately in your restock limit number. As soon as you create a removal order, your restock limit will increase. And then I know a lot of sellers, including us, have been looking at alternatives to FBA. So one alternative to FBA, which we'll come on to in a bit, and to keep the Prime badge, is SFP, Seller Fulfill Prime. There's also FBM, which is fulfillment by merchant, but you don't get the Prime badge. So those are a couple of things that you can look into as well. So that's on managing the limits. And the second thing is on how to increase the limits. So a few things you can try. One is you can submit a case. I know sellers deal with seller support all the time, so very familiar with how to create a case. But sometimes these are successful. I'd say low conversion, but worth trying. No downside to trying it. The thing that I would advise is to try and improve the run rate, because the way that restock limits are calculated comes down to what your past sales are, what Amazon predict your future sales are going to be. If you improve the run rate, i.e. the sales of your products, that shows that your sales are increasing, and that will be reflected in what Amazon predict your sales are going to be. So you can do that through putting products on deals, reducing the price, adding coupons, things like that. Test those out and see what the effect is on your products. And if you see that your product sales are increasing, it's likely that your restock limit is going to increase also. So then you can plan out an inbound from your 3PL into Amazon. And then the last thing I would say is act quickly, because don't overthink. Right, we're gonna wait until next week to send in X number of units. If your restock limit has gone up, use that as an opportunity to inbound more of your fast-moving products. Because if you miss that opportunity and then your sales maybe plateau or drop off a bit, then your restock limit is likely to decrease, because your overall sales on your account are reducing. So yeah, those are the things I would recommend.
Okay, perfect. So as you mentioned already, when you gave an answer to this question, then the next logical step would be to talk about SFP, so Seller Fulfill Prime. As you mentioned, I think more of the sellers are aware of FBM, the term FBM. So could you first explain what this Seller Fulfill Prime is and how does it usually work?
Sure. So Seller Fulfill Prime, or SFP, is another way for you to get your products onto Prime. But while with FBA, as a seller, you send in large volumes of your stock into Amazon, and then when a customer orders, Amazon will pick, pack, and deliver the items for you. With SFP, you don't send anything into Amazon. You keep all of your stock in your own warehouse or any 3PL that you use, and then when a customer orders, you pick, pack, and deliver the items, and then send it to Amazon. And then you deal with the returns. Amazon will still do some customer service, but basically, you don't split your stock. Your inventory you keep all in one place, and then you don't send anything to Amazon.
Okay, and this program also has some changes happening. So can you give us an overview of what has been going on?
Yep. So again, with SFP, there have been some changes as well. They were introduced earlier this year, probably around June time. Across UK, rest of Europe, and US as well. US changes came in slightly earlier, but the main changes, there's two main changes. So the first one is the daily cutoff time. I'll explain what that is. From Monday to Friday has been shifted later in the day. So daily cutoff time Used to be, at least in the UK, was 2 p.m. So if a customer ordered before 2 p.m. A product on SFP, as a seller, you would need to pick and pack that product the same day and give to your carrier the same day for them to go and deliver. So that used to be 2 p.m. That's now been moved later to 4 p.m. So what it means is your carrier pickup times you need to move later in the day. You also need to work later in the day to pick and pack your products. So that's the first change. The second change is on weekends. So it used to be that sellers only needed to work Monday to Friday, and they didn't need to work weekends. But now it's mandatory on SFP. This is just in the UK, not in Europe, to work at least one day over the weekend. So on a Saturday or a Sunday, you need to have collections booked on a Saturday or a Sunday with your carrier.
Okay, and the main question is why Amazon is doing these changes. Is it the same reason that there are just so many orders coming in, so that sellers have to, do their work with fulfilling the orders faster?
No, so they're actually kind of unrelated. They've just both happened around the same time. So the main reason that Amazon have changed made the changes to SFP is to protect customers. So with FBA, the prime promise is in the UK is that you can get delivery within 1 or 2 days. I know in the US it's slightly longer and it varies a bit from country to country. But if you have Prime and you order something, you can get it same day, next day, or within 2 days. You can choose. With SFP, the Prime promise is supposed to be the same. However, we were seeing that the speed wasn't always the same. And the main reason was down to these two things, the cutoff being quite early in the day and sellers not working weekends. So I'll give you an example. Under the old rules, where in the UK nobody had to work on weekends, if I ordered a product after the cutoff time on a Friday, so let's say I ordered a product at 6 p.m. on a Friday, that would then be given to the carrier, picked and packed by the seller and given to the carrier on the Monday. And then the carrier then delivers it within 1 or 2 days. Let's say it's within 2 days. So that's Wednesday delivery. And then there used to be a program called SFP Small and Light, where the delivery promise was 1 day longer. So you'd receive that on a Thursday. So that you order something on a Friday and you could potentially receive something on a Wednesday or a Thursday. That's 5-6 day promise, which is not what Amazon wanted with customers. So that's the main reason Amazon changed it, to protect the Prime promise for customers. And under the new version of that, if I ordered something at 6 p.m. on a Friday, then the seller is working one of the two weekend days. So it'll be picked and packed, let's say, on a Saturday, given to the carrier on the Saturday. That will then be delivered on the Monday, or maybe latest Tuesday. So it's to reduce the delivery promise.
Okay, so this is a good change definitely for the customers, but what would you say, how does these changes affect Amazon sellers?
With Amazon sellers, they're basically faced with a choice. So they, in the UK, they need to do both. They need to work weekends, or Saturday or Sunday, and work later on weekdays. In the EU, in Europe, it's slightly different. They only have to do work later on Monday to Friday. And in the US, it's similar to Europe. So sellers are faced with a choice. Either they agree to these requirements and continue with SFP. If they don't, then they can't continue to be part of the SFP program. And if they want to keep their products on Prime, they have to do FBA. Or if they're more concerned about keeping all the inventory in one place, then they have to do FBM, because those are really the options that Amazon have. Or they look elsewhere off Amazon. So those are the main choices that sellers have. I would probably group sellers into, well, this is just from my experience from speaking with sellers and working with sellers. There are probably 3 types of sellers. So there's there are the sort of massive sellers who do thousands of units a day, deliver them themselves. They have their own warehouses. They have their own already in-house capabilities. They have teams of people who pick and pack products. They're probably honestly unaffected by this, because they were probably working even later than the 4 p.m. cutoff on weekdays anyway. They'll probably and on their own websites, they probably offer next day delivery maybe if you order by 9 p.m. and they're working weekends already. So this doesn't make a difference to them. Then there's the second group of sellers, which are at the other extreme. They are small sellers, probably working part-time alongside their own job. Maybe they make the products themselves. For these sellers, they're definitely affected because there's no way they have enough volume that they're sending enough units to push their carrier to have a later collection time with them. So if a carrier is coming to collect from them at 1 p.m. and they want to stay on SFP, but they want to move their collection to 5 p.m., carrier might just turn around to them and go, no, we can't do that. You don't have enough volume. So they're forced off anyway. And some of these sellers might not even want to, work weekends because they might pick and pack the items themselves. They might not have a team. So I'd say a lot of those sellers would drop off. And then there's a group of sellers in the middle. So these sellers, probably they're not doing thousands of units a day. They may be doing hundreds of units a day, and they have a choice. They can either, as I said before, drop off SFP to do FBA, so send a lot of items into FBA or do FBM, or they sort of have to accept the changes and work weekends and work later in the week, maybe hire new employees or just work longer themselves. I think this year we'll see a lot of sellers probably doing SFP because of the issues that they're having with FBA, getting items sent into warehouses, etc. So they might have their own, and the restock limits. So they might be doing SFP. It'll be interesting to see post Q4 what happens with SFP. I think as I said, a lot of the big sellers, they'll carry on. Doesn't matter. Small sellers, I think, will drop off.
Okay, very good. So Nish, thank you so much for joining me today to discuss both of these changes and updates. Very important for all the Amazon sellers, no matter of their size. So before we leave for today, could you once more explain what does Olsam do? And if anybody of our viewers would like to find more information about you, then what's the best website or email address to reach out to you?
Sure. So yeah, once more, Olsam, we are a UK-based acquirer of e-commerce brands. Mostly we are investing in Amazon brands at the moment, Amazon FBA brands. So we have an in-house team. We have an investments team who do a lot of the execution of the deals, speak directly with the businesses themselves. A lot of these guys, including myself, have worked at Amazon before and have run our own Amazon businesses. We have a brand operations team that actually run the businesses day to day, look after the P&L. We have an in-house creative team who do the photos, the videos, do the listings on the website. We have our own copywriters. We have an advertising team who deal with PPC and all those complications. We have our own supply chain team as well, who do all the inventory management and sourcing of products. So we're really well set up to take brands from a lot of sellers. They get to a point where they don't have the time or the resources to scale their brand to the next level. We're well set up and well funded to be able to do that. So if you are interested in finding out more about what we do, or you're interested in selling your business, or just want to find out more about the process of selling your business, please visit our website. It's www.olsamgroup.com. And there's a contact us page. You can book in time with any of us directly on there. And yeah, we look forward to speaking with you. You can also reach out to me directly. My email is nish@olsamgroup.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well if you'd like to connect there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and we wish good luck in your business.
Thank you very much, LISETT. Thanks for having me.
I hope this video helped you to better understand the changes Amazon made recently. And in case you want to reach out to Olsam team and maybe offer your brand for them to buy, find the link below and mention Orange Klik in this video. And now I would like to recommend you to check another video with Nish, where he shares tips on how to prepare for selling your Amazon FBA business.